It seems that more bishops are finding a spine to tell the truth about what's going on in Rome and how the new boss is basically the same as the old with a better tailor. That's where we are. And it's interesting to see because Operation Zip It continues among some people, decrying those of us who can't, in good conscience, keep our mouths shut about things going on in the Vatican. We'll go right to the first of these. You might be familiar with Bishop Marian Eleganti. He's a auxiliary bishop, puts him at great risk, meaning he's an assistant bishop. His own ordinary, the bishop he answers to, could shut him down anytime he likes. Rome could silence him on a whim, with even fewer consequences than a normal bishop. You may be familiar with Bishop Eleganti because he was one of the 4 bishops who traveled to the United States to offer a massive reparation for the James Martin pilgrimage that happened at the beginning of September. You know, the one that happened in St. Peter's. Made all the international headlines. LifeSite comes to us with this article. Headline, exclusive, Bishop Eleganti criticizes the Vatican for installing a Ottoman or Saracen prayer rug. He said the Vatican is promoting a, quote, kind of emotional religion that no longer takes the truth and difference seriously because there is only unity in truth. Everything else is an illusion. Where's the lie? That's all it is. This is an emotional, feel-good, nonsensical, quote-unquote religion the synodal church is promoting. It's not the Catholic religion. If it was Catholicism, there'd be some talk about repentance and working out your salvation in fear and trembling and all the rest of the things, the harder parts of the faith that get downplayed a lot by these types of people who are running the church and have been for decades. Bishop Eleganti has finally had enough, it seems, because, well, once they're actively promoting a religion that is basically openly at war with the Catholic faith and its adherents and making deals with them, it's just too much for some people. It was a jarring thing. So here's the details. Bishop Marian Eleganti has criticized the Vatican for installing a prayer carpet for the followers of the false prophet in the Vatican Apostolic Library. In an exclusive interview, Bishop Eleganti told LifeSite News that, quote, that religion is naturally expansive. As soon as a follower of it prays there, somehow in the minds of the faithful, I'm not entirely sure about this, but I wouldn't be surprised if it then becomes a kind of rooting and foothold, an outpost for the coming dominance that religion naturally always strives for. They want absolute dominance. It is inherently intolerant, he continued. It has caused Christianity to disappear everywhere. Conversely, one would never allow us to set up a chapel in their so-called holy city, their holiest site, where we could celebrate Holy Mass, he noted. Earlier this month, the Vatican Apostolic Library provided the followers of their false prophet with a room featuring a prayer rug. Of course, some of their scholars have asked us for a room with a carpet for praying, and we have given it to them, Giacomo Cardinale, vice prefect of the Vatican Apostolic Library, told La Repubblica. The disclosure that those types can pray at the Vatican Apostolic Library has sparked an outcry from Catholic commentators who have suggested that the permission signals religious indifferentism, ambivalence about its own Catholic identity, and ideological surrender to the Crescent Moon religion. Bishop Eleganti said it is a religion that we believe is not really inspired by God, but is deliberately conceived in an anti-Christian sense. It's a total polemic against Jesus' divine sonship and against his absolute significance as mediator between man and God the Father. He stressed that it denies the Trinity, and Christians worldwide suffer persecutions at the hands of its adherents. I think it just shows that even in the Vatican, the people who allow and support this have, in my opinion, a completely surreal, naive relationship with that so-called religion and interfaith dialogue, the Swiss bishop stated. He said that with actions like these, the Vatican is portraying a purely emotional religion. We are friendly, we are open, we are tolerant, we have a welcoming culture, we are open to dialogue, etc. It's a kind of emotional religion that no longer takes the truth and difference seriously, because there's only unity and truth. Everything else is an illusion. He criticized the Vatican for trying to, quote, achieve unity with heterodox religions without asking the questions of truth. He said that its adherents have, quote, large temples in Rome, and that there is no need for them to have a prayer room in the Vatican, end quote. He says emotional religion. I got a better word for it. Progressivism. We are talking about secular forces in the church who have all the managerial positions of the church and have essentially aligned themselves rhetorically, theologically, ideologically with secular progressivism. It's in every policy coming out of Rome these days and out of a chancery office near you for the most part. And I say progressivism, not because I tend to view things always through a political lens, because that's who Cardinal Mueller, that's the word he's using. I know Cardinal Mueller has taken some flack recently because he has been clearly on the side of Operation Zip It. He really has been. But it seems that even he maybe has had enough finally. And now I am not under the illusion that Cardinal Mueller is some great voice of orthodoxy in the church. He is not. He is a moderate. I know for some of you that will be shocking to hear. But 10 years ago, he was counted as among the progressive theologians in the church. He is very friendly with James Martin. There were pictures of this that came out last year of him at some synod on synodality meeting, rubbing shoulders with him, having pictures taken, exchanging autographed books, and the like. And you can go through Cardinal Mueller's history. It's pretty troubling. But somewhere in the last few years, he's at least pivoted at least a little bit towards a more conservative post-conciliar variation on Catholicism, to the point where he's gained a lot of trust in the eyes of a lot of traditional and conservative Catholics. But he seems to have had enough under Leo, at least so far. The headline is Cardinal Mueller says progressivism, not tradition, is splitting the Catholic Church. And that is the absolute truth. Here's what he has to say. Cardinal Gerhard Mueller said it's progressivism, not tradition, that is dividing the Catholic Church in light of a statement by Pope Leo XIV that the tension between tradition and novelty can be a harmful polarization. Progressivism is the ideology that's splitting the church. Mueller, former prefect for the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith under Francis, that's the job he had, told EWTN's Raymond Arroyo on a Thursday episode of The World Over. Arroyo had quoted a recent statement by Leo that he said seemed to emphasize the Vatican's discomfort with tradition. The progressives within the church, who are in reality unorthodox, are making moral compromises and relativizing the sacrament of marriage, a revealed truth with a blessing of James Martin types, said Mueller, referring to the Vatican's permission for such blessings under Pope Francis's via fiducia supplicans. That is splitting the church and not the traditions. The cardinal pointed out that tradition is an essential pillar of the church, along with Holy Scripture and the magisterium. Catholic tradition itself is also solidly founded, Mueller noted, since its content is the revealed doctrine of the apostles. Asked by Arroyo why he thinks there is such antagonism against the traditional Latin Mass, Mueller said, "I cannot understand these people." He said he has concluded that there is no deeper theology behind the restriction of the Latin Mass. The only argument they have is, we have the authority, he said, with no reason involved. They must explain what is wrong with the older form of the liturgy, but have not done so, he noted. He defied Cardinal Blaise Superch's claim that the Old Mass is a spectacle, stressing that we cannot say that the centuries of bishops and popes who offered the Old Mass were interested in a spectacle. Mueller suggested that Superch's statement is not a theologically based position, but was made for headlines. With that claim, you cannot pass an examination with me in dogmatics, he added. In other words, he's saying that Cardinal Superch doesn't know a thing about theology. Arroyo went on to highlight Pope Leo's point, made to Crux in September, that, quote, you can say the Mass in Latin right now. If it's the Vatican II rite, there's no problem. What about the idea that we can just go to the Novus Ordo in Latin, Arroyo asked Mueller. To which he responds, the council never said we must invent a new liturgy because the old form was wrong, he replied. The main idea, he said, was to make the Mass easier to follow because they didn't speak Latin. But the traditional rite is the same we've had since the 6th or 4th century, said Mueller, as if to suggest that one cannot simply toss away such an old, time-honored liturgy. He referred to the attack on the traditional Latin Mass as a superfluous struggle, called for the Church to avoid such an attack. We can struggle with those who are denying the divinity of Jesus Christ, but not those who prefer the traditional liturgies. He believes that the Latin Mass crackdown is about a demonstration of authority and not about the salvation of souls. Therein is the most truthful statement he said after the ideological one. They're flexing their power on people. This is to get people to submit. This is why the zip it response is so dangerous, because you give in to their demonstration of authority. They want to silence all opposition to any resistance to the things they're doing. It is a problem, moreover, he continues, that the Pope is usurping the authority of the bishops by ordering the suppression of the traditional masses. We have to avoid this impression, also, he said on Nostra Aetate, on all these ecumenical religious meetings, that all religions are the same, Mueller said. They are not all expressions of a basic religion of mankind, he stressed. Nostra Aetate itself is marked by this false ecumenical attitude, since it does not encourage conversion to the true faith, but instead suggests that men can reach God through pagan religions, such as the elephant worshippers, or the ones that honor that, the Eastern one that honors that fat guy. On YouTube, you are not permitted to critique other religions. They will come down on you like the wrath of God. I have found that out personally. We cannot mix it all. We are not fratelli tutti, he concluded, slapping Pope Francis's legacy there by referring to his encyclical by the same name on fraternity and social friendship. Fratelli tutti is widely argued to promote religious indifferentism and was condemned by Archbishop Vigano, the former papal nuncio to the U.S., as promoting a blasphemous form of brotherhood without God, as well as religious indifferentism. Where's the lie? Is Cardinal Mueller wrong? I don't think so. It's nice to see him stepping up to the plate, as it were, and telling the truth about things that go on in the church now. Hopefully he'll continue this. In a way, I've kind of missed having his letters that he would, or his public statements that he would issue, but he went silent in the last few months of the Francis papacy. Longtime viewers of this channel, you might have noticed I haven't covered Cardinal Mueller in a long time. He hasn't really said much. But now it seems that he has had enough in his own genial, positive, kind of quiet way. And it's good, because this needs to be a resistance to the changes that Leo is continuing that were started under Francis. Need to be resisted by more than just hardline traditionalists. It needs to be across the spectrum of people in the church who have the faith. It has to be. It cannot just be a group of mostly American traditional Catholics warning everybody else about this. It'll fall flat on its face if it does. So it's good to see that the German, Cardinal Mueller, is stepping up, as well as Bishop Eleganti, who is, I want to say he's Dutch, but I might be incorrect about that. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. Are you happy to see Cardinal Mueller stepping forward? Do you tend to agree that this is an ideological progressive current in the church? He doesn't use the word modernist. Modernism is by definition a progressive ideology. And even many of the conservative bishops after Vatican II were modernists, which means they were progressive. It's just that the revolution in the church is what Vatican II was. And after every revolution, you get new sides that form up. That you can call a left wing and a right wing side. Every revolution in history has had this. And then those two vie for authority and power. The most conservative elements in the church today, theologically, would have been considered progressives by pre-Vatican II standards. That's the truth. All you have to do is go look at who the Holy Office had been keeping an eye on as suspected of the modernist heresy before Vatican II to see what I mean. For those who don't know, Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, when he was Father Joseph Ratzinger, was on the Holy Office's watch list as a potential modernist. That's a historic fact. Makes a lot of people uncomfortable to hear that. Tells you how far things have changed and progressed. Whereas Benedict is seen widely as kind of one of the heroes of the post-Vatican II era, trying to hold the line. And to a degree, you could see how he came to that conclusion. He started with the hermeneutic of continuity as a way to try to keep the changes in the church in line theologically with what came before. The problem is there's, of course, contradiction. Therein lies the problem. I'm curious, though, what you think of all this. Keep in mind, today we are firmly entering into the octave for this praying for the holy souls of the departed in purgatory, and being that it is November 2nd, and I will tell you that that you should make sure to make the most of the octave by going and visiting a cemetery and praying for the repose of the holy souls, because you will find that that what we have as a great opportunity is, of course, the indulgences that come with that. So don't waste the opportunity that comes. Let me know if, by the way, if any of the feasts, the All Saints, All Souls, and All Hallows Eve, all of those, any of those got wrapped into if the obligation associated with the days of this weekend came and got wrapped into Sunday. That happened to me. My parish, my diocese, is wrapping the holy day of obligation to today, which is kind of annoying. By the way, if you think I'm broadcasting this an hour later than usual, that's because in the United States today, powers that be decide that this is the part of the year where we play God with time by creating the illusion of creating more daylight hours by knocking the clocks back an hour. So if you're watching this overseas, that's why. And if you're in America and forgot, well, good morning, fix your clock. Let me know in general what else you might think about all this. So let me know in the comments, please. And like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help. Sharing this in social media helps as well. As always, pray for the church. And as you can tell, I'm a little sleep deprived right now. So please, prayers for me as I drive my family to Mass this morning. As always, again, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.